Alright, PNSO is back, and with a bang, giving us T-Rex, surely one of the most flagship of dinosaurs. It's been a while since the Wilson T-Rex came out. Since then, PNSO has continued to perfect its craft, and most obviously, creating much finer skin textures. We saw this in Tarbosaurus, Tyrannus, and Andrea. So it was a question of when we'd see Wilson with the improved integument. Well, the time is now, although it's not Wilson here but Cameron. Cameron is based on Sue and measures about 35 centimeters or 13.8 inches from snout to tail tip. Now, T-Rex may have exceeded 12.4 meters or 40.6 feet. For a 12.3 meter or 40.3 foot animal, this model is 1:35 scale. The tallest point is the crown at 11.9 centimeters or 4.7 inches. We can see here against my trusty 1:35 humanoid. PNSO pampered us with luscious color schemes in their latest Carcharodontosaurids. Now, this T-Rex, however, goes back to its roots, in keeping with the schemes established for the T-Rex clan. We're going to look at the model, and we'll do it a bit differently. I will of course take you through the detail, but because I'm sure many of us want to see how it compares to the old Wilson, I'll bring him in at various points. If I save the comparison to the end, I'll be repeating much of Cameron and making this video even longer than I'm predicting it will be. So first, of course, we go to the head. Immediately, the kind of detail we expect from PNSO is apparent. There are so many textures here, it's a feast for the eyes, even if you've seen their other Tyrannosaurids. Now, I tend to look at the face of my theropods first. And indeed, there's the regional variability I hope to see, to an even greater degree than in some other models. Ornamental features are of course really cool. Rugosity over the nasal here is reflected in the overlying surface anatomy. PNSO also referenced the skull of Stan, one of the best preserved skulls ever, with minor tweaks. For example, the postorbital crest here is set more posteriorly in Sue, so you get this build-up behind the eyes. And you see how generous the result is. And here we can compare the proportions with the previous Wilson. In general, Cameron has a more extensive ornamentation than Wilson, as you can see. And there are color differences in the oranges. And here in the premaxillary or labial area, you have the thicker, larger flat scales. These are suggested based on the surface texture of the underlying bone. PNSO also considered the facial biting seen in tyrannosaurs supporting the value of such a morphology. In the area of the oral margins, you have a dark emphasis, giving a kind of a lipstick effect that some of you may not like. The smooth transitions and blends of color, however, are beyond censure. And here, the scales are again differentiated from the body. You can also see the characteristic taper. And you'll also appreciate the correctly placed nostrils towards the front. In the throat, more of that detailed scalation. The eyes look quite cleanly painted. Obviously, it's lipless, so you see these exposed teeth. PNSO has in fact attempted a reconstruction with lips, but wasn't able to find a convincing conformation. In the video, Zhao Chuang references discoveries of papers pre-2023, so it's likely that Cameron was already finalized before the Cullen et al. Paper came out this year. The mouth articulation is really smooth, closing perfectly. And as to the teeth, when images first leaked, there was concern of very badly applied paint. And as you can see, however, you can set your mind at ease, as the paint, while not perfect, is much better applied than in the photo. and inside the mouth, you'll see that detail that we saw in the Wilson T-Rex. Whether it's the tongue, the rictus, or the palate, you see not just detail, but amazing color. Now, I've said that PNSO hit its all-time high in painting the mouth of Wilson, but I'm happy to say that in Cameron, we're seeing the same level of quality. Now, based on newer reconstructions of muscles like the trapezius and the sternocleidomastoid, PNSO has tried to recreate the shape as well as the increased girth accordingly. Now we can compare to Wilson here. Very thick, very powerful looking neck. Now let's head down. Now here in the body will, I suspect, be the main reason many people are considering getting Cameron to upgrade from Wilson. And finally, you see here the same kind of scales we've seen in PNSO's latest offerings. And certainly, compared to Wilson, the difference in refinement is as clear as night and day. Now, Wilson was really great in its time, and I've never judged it by today's standards. However, in comparing the two, I also realized something. While there's something to be said about its more realistic texture, at this new level of smoothness, you also lose some of that visual and tactile appeal that characterized the old Wilson. It might have been nice to incorporate some of Wilson's texturing into Cameron. Now, speculative and without evidence, of course, but experientially more interesting. Now, one thing you'll notice is that because of this relative smoothness, you can get more nuanced blends in the color as well. This can be appreciated in the body itself with various types of browns, darks, reddish, but also very obviously in the stripes. The previous Wilson already had a very nice color, but if you compare the two in just a couple of areas, and the stripes, there's a creamy, buttery improvement in Cameron. Again, the girth that's become the norm reflects the rather apple-shaped cross-sectional area, and also the presence of the gastralia. Now we get to one of the most fascinating qualities of T-Rex, the undersized arms. Now you might notice that in this T-Rex, the arms seem to be spread rather widely apart. According to the video, the reasoning is that even though skeletally the arms seem more narrowly spaced, the addition and intervention of surrounding musculature and also the upper part of the arm is buried in the overlying muscles, which is something I liked in the previous Wilson. I'd also add that arm posture adds to the illusion. If you see this illustration from Lipkin and Carpenter 2008, which I've reflected here, and imagine the top part upper arm buried. And so here you see these rather impressive pectoral muscles. The famous two fingers are given due attention and care. The second finger is longer than the first, as should be the case. In addition, PNSO has also sculpted the tiniest hint of a vestigial third metacarpal. Now these arms are honoured with a very good paint application. I'll just look at the shades of colour here. And then the hind limbs. And of course, the detail and paint application are equally sterling. Now down the leg, and more of those scale details and skin folds. Now here it's common to see multiple rows of tarsal scutes which look very pleasing. Based on extant birds with one extended row, PNSO has decided to use that look here instead. You also have these blunted claws, which is a realistic feature that PNSO sculpts in most of its theropods. Now the feet here may look big, but actually, respect papers on soft tissue surrounding the foot bones of dinosaurs like Concavenator and Microraptor, as you see here. There's a lot more padding around the bones than you'd expect, which will be squished out with weight bearing. And that's what PNSO reflected here. And on the underside, you'll see again that detail. And comparing to Wilson. And finishing off with the tail, you see the beauty of the sculpt as the scales really diminish in size here. The muscle bundles are very nicely defined. Those lusciously blended stripes. And here you can just compare how Wilson matches up. And finally, the pose. Now compared to Wilson, it's got a slightly more neutral one. If you look at the old Wilson, you see a slightly more action-packed pose, but there were a few problems with it. Now it tended to be front-heavy, so it would face-plant after some time without a support stand. And because of this posture, I felt it wasn't as versatile in the number of angles you could display him. And especially with size comparisons, I had to use this side because of the foreshortening here. Being a museum line model, you of course have all the extras. The usual posters are there. I just need to show you a few to give you an idea of the beautiful art. Of course, most of you will be more interested in the skull of Sue. Now PNSO has chosen not to give us the restored skull, but rather the skull as found, with all the taphonomic changes and deformities. In some ways that actually makes this more interesting. If you compare it to the scans in the Das et al. 2017 paper, you'll see it's a very nice replica. In addition, you'll also see some signs of avian trichomoniasis, a sign of parasitic infection found in a number of tyrannosaurid fossils in the left mandible here. It really is quite an interesting extra, and just like with the Triceratops skull, a very appropriate prop for a museum line model. And I hope we'll see more fossil extras like this in the future for the museum line. In the next video, we'll look at some of the science behind the reconstruction in Cullen et al. 2023, and then the comparisons, which I predict will be a long one. I'll see you there.